What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and with the impending sale of Warner Brothers, this has been discussion for weeks about who would end up buying Warner Brothers. You had Netflix, Comcast, and Paramount all making various offers, and in a potential mega move for the entire entertainment industry, it seems that Netflix is going to be the one that, at this point at least, is going to be able to try to make an exclusive deal to acquire Warner Brothers. But I do think this is far from over, as there's lots of entities and people and industries that are against this move. So we're going to read through this article from Deadline, get some thoughts about this, and see maybe where all this goes and how does this end up shaking out. We're going to talk all about it. So like I said, this is from Deadline. It says, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery confirm $82.7 billion mega deal that reshapes the industry. That's a lot of money. Netflix is officially buying Warner Brothers Discovery for a total enterprise value of $82.7 billion. The industry-changing deal will see Netflix paying $27.75 a share for the venerable Hollywood studio with a total equity value of $72 billion. Netflix will acquire Warner Brothers, including its film and television studios, HBO Max and HBO, subject to regulatory conditions, of which there will be several. That is one major thing that I would say right off the bat. I do see this potentially running into quite the regulation issues here. You already have people from both sides of the aisle politically that have talked about how this is not a good thing. This violates antitrust. You talk about the largest streamer acquiring like the number 3 streamer in terms of HBO Max. There's lots of implications with this. So even though this has been agreed, I wouldn't even say, they kind of worded this as saying, it's basically been official that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. Essentially what has happened here is Netflix and Warner Brothers are entering into exclusive talk deals here. So there's really nothing completely finalized about this. But even if Warner Brothers and Netflix do just, they come to an agreement and say this is what we're going to do, there is still a lot of hurdles that they would have to get through. And I'm not completely convinced that they will be able to get through them, to be quite honest. The deal will follow after Warner Brothers Global Networks division, Discover Global, spins out into a new publicly traded company, a move that is now expected to happen in Q3 of 2026. In their official announcement, Netflix said, quote, it expects to maintain Warner Brothers' current operations and build on its strengths, including theatrical releases for films. Netflix added that this acquisition will also allow the company to significantly expand U.S. production capacity. So this is another thing, too. Theaters are not for this because Netflix doesn't really care about theater releases. And obviously, acquiring Warner Brothers really changes the entire business model of Netflix. So the worry is that Netflix will say for now, yeah, sure, we'll keep up theater releases, but that doesn't mean they're going to continue to do that. But I do think you look at theaters, and I really think where Hollywood's at, it's very similar to linear television. I mean, theaters have struggled immensely, especially ever since 2020. You had the strike happen, and people just aren't going to movies as much as they used to. I mean, also throw in the fact, too, that you can go to Costco or Walmart right now and get a 65-inch TV for, $300 and some odd dollars. That looks great. So you have a great product you can watch at home. So it's very difficult to get people to go to theaters. And that's before you even get to the fact that most of the stuff coming out has just not been good. It's very few and far between that you have really good movies that come out. And so there's lots of worries about this, that Netflix, being one of the reasons that theaters have been struggling, are now acquiring a major studio that is this going to potentially quicken up, I suppose you could say, the demise of theaters potentially. And even though they can say all they want, there is worry out there about what would they do with the entire, theater release schedule and things of that nature. The boards of both Netflix and Warner Brothers voted unanimously to approve the deal. Mind you, though, Paramount is not done. They're going to continue to lobby to try and have a different outcome here. Our mission has always been to entertain the world, said Ted Sarandos, co-CEO of Netflix. By combining Warner Brothers' incredible library of shows and movies, from timeless classics like Casablanca and Citizen Kane, to modern favorites like Harry Potter and Friends, with our culture-defining titles like Stranger Things, K-pop, Demon Hunters, and Squid Game, we'll be able to do that even better. Together, we can give audiences more of what they love and help define the next century of storytelling. Greg Peters, the other co-CEO of Netflix, said the acquisition would, quote, improve our offering and accelerate our business for decades to come. Adding, Warner Brothers has helped define entertainment for more than a century. and continues to do so with phenomenal creative executives and production capabilities. I would say that is a lot of fluff. Warner Brothers is one of the dumbest companies out there. They have been nothing but fumbling the entire studio ever since the early 2000s, which they dominated. Early 2000s, you had Harry Potter, you had the Nolan Batman trilogy, you had Lord of the Rings, and since then, it has been a series of just boneheaded decisions. And talk about the DC universe, it's been a mess. It's relaunched now under James Gunn. I would not say that they have amazing executives or, phenomenal creatives. I think that they have mismanaged Warner Brothers to the point of why they are selling Warner Brothers. With its massive catalog of IPs and all the things that they have, there should really be no reason that Warner Brothers is on the chopping block, but here we are, and it's due to terrible decisions by Warner Brothers. With our global reach and proven business model, we can introduce a broader audience to the worlds they create, giving our members more options, attracting more fans to our best-in-class streaming service, strengthening the entire entertainment industry, and creating more value for shareholders. Today's announcement combines two of the greatest storytelling companies in the world to bring to even more people the entertainment they love to watch most, said David Zaslav, who is now filthy, filthy, filthy rich if this goes through. For more than a century, Warner Brothers has thrilled audiences, captured the world's attention, and shaped our culture. By combining together with Netflix, we will ensure people everywhere will continue to enjoy the world's most resonant stories for generations to come. The terms of the agreement will see each Warner Brothers shareholder receive $23.25 in cash and $4.50 in shares of Netflix common stock for the Warner Brothers common stock share. Politics has played a key role in this protracted sale since the start, and one can imagine we will hear from the White House soon on today's news. The Ellison family has close ties to President Trump. Paramount has consistently argued that it is the only one of the three offers with a clear path to closing, insisting in an open letter published yesterday that the rival offers from Netflix and Comcast both, quote, present serious issues that no regulator will be able to ignore. Paramount said it believed Netflix, being the dominant streamer in the U.S. and globally, would face major antitrust hurdles adding HBO Max to the fold. There is valid arguments there. I mean, if you look at Paramount, they are much smaller than Warner Brothers. Basically, the Ellisons have taken over, have a ton of money. I don't think they're necessarily wrong in this. And again, you have to think as well. I mean, I do believe the administration has favored Paramount in this situation. And from what I have actually heard, Netflix is going to use YouTube as an example as to why this does not violate antitrust, basically looking at YouTube as the biggest streamer and using that as an argument. I do think there's a difference between YouTube and Netflix, but this is how they're going to go approach this. I don't know how this plays out. All I know is this is not over, as well as Paramount said that they are actually going to appeal directly to the Warner Brothers shareholders because in this deal, actually Paramount made a larger offer per share than Netflix did. So I don't think this is over. And I don't know yet, appealing directly to Warner Brothers shareholders, I don't really know how that will go or what if the shareholders decide to go a different direction, but either way, I don't think this is, even if this is approved, again, it's going to go through lots of regulatory red tape before it was ever actually approved. David Ellison's company also called the sale process unfair and tilted towards Netflix. Warner Brothers countered that its board, quote, attends to its fiduciary obligations with the utmost care and that they have fully and robustly complied with them and will continue to do so. In a veiled attack on Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav, Paramount claimed the, quote, sales process has been tainted by management conflicts, including certain members of management's potential personal interest in post-transaction roles and compensation as a result of the economic incentives embedded in recent amendments to employment arrangements. I believe what they're talking about here is Zaslav's going to make a ton of money, more money than I think he would have made selling to anybody else by selling it to Netflix. I think that is exactly what one reason why they're going to appeal to the shareholders, because they're going to argue this deal is really good for David Zaslav, but it's not the best deal for Warner Brothers itself, I believe is going to be their argument. Paramount had offered Zaslav a role if the companies were to merge. It's not certainly clear what role Zaslav will play in a Warner-Netflix merger. I think basically he'll play the role of getting a lot of money. I'd really be surprised if it went through that Zaslav is part of the management of Netflix. And like I said, you already have a lot of people that are against this. Hollywood Teamsters disavow the Netflix-Warner Brothers merger. It says, yet another call for alarm over media consolidation, urging U.S. regulators to reject this deal. And this is coming directly from Hollywood Teamsters. They said Netflix is the biggest streaming service in the world. Consolidating its power over the streaming video market not only kills jobs, but also raises prices and hurts the U.S. entertainment industry. Teamsters have been clear in our position that greed-fueled consolidation of corporate power, no matter what industry, is a direct threat to good union jobs, the livelihood of our members, and the very existence of our industry. They said before Netflix won the streaming wars, workers and consumers benefited from robust competition. The golden age of TV meant more jobs and more choices for consumers. In an already shrinking market, these mergers, alongside the infiltration of big tech, should be of great concern as we navigate an uncharted future. Teamsters will continue to challenge and call for the opposition across all levels of government, and that antitrust enforcers reject this deal and any other deal seeking the consolidation of power and market. So like I said, this doesn't mean that it's completely finalized. Basically, Warner Brothers and Netflix are entering into direct negotiations to, come to a final deal on this or work out the details here. Basically when you look at this, Hollywood is now basically run by big tech. I mean, you have Netflix, you have Apple, you have Amazon. And for Hollywood, I mean, this is probably sending off major alarm bells everywhere because Netflix is not a company that Hollywood has necessarily enjoyed. They're a disruptor, and their entire business model is basically the opposite of the traditional theaters in terms of how they have operated. So not only are you going to have potential regulation issues, you're going to have all of Hollywood against this. You're going to have, again, you have Teamsters against this. You're going to have a lot of people be against this. And really the big question here is it going to be able to clear regulation or red tape about this, considering antitrust laws? The White House, as of now, has not said anything that I'm aware of yet on this. But I imagine they will end up saying something about this. And again, Paramount and the Ellisons are going to continue to, make their claim and make their case that they should sell to them, as I do believe they were offering more money. And if this goes through, it will definitely reshape all of Hollywood. In terms of DC, do they relaunch DC? Do they keep DC? You're talking about all these things going to Netflix, and Netflix is very notorious for cutting shows very quickly. Things that don't do well, they just cut. Will they keep up the theatrical releases, or will they use this as a way to take some Netflix things into the theaters more? I mean, there's a lot of questions about this. I've often wondered, if you look at this with the Netflix houses as well, there's really nothing stopping Netflix from maybe starting their own movie theater chains. I mean, or buying up a movie theater chain. So there was a law where they could not do this. Studios could not own theater chains from the 1940s. It was a major legal barrier, prevented film production companies from owning movie theaters. But this did change in 2020, as it was ruled by a federal judge that this decree, known as the Paramount Consent Decrees, basically didn't hold any weight anymore due to the changing, nature of the movie industry and entertainment. And so that no longer is the case now. So there's actually nothing legally that would prohibit Netflix from buying up or doing something with theater chains, or using, they have these Netflix houses that they're doing. Obviously they could throw in Netflix movies and also Warner Brothers movies into these and make money both ways, not only on the ticket sales, but making money as the theater chain as well, and not having that profit split. Netflix is the type of company that would do that. Again, they are very disrupted. They do not operate as a traditional studio, which is one reason why Hollywood is terrified of this, because they're not really predictable. They operate as a tech company that also makes entertainment, essentially. And so I think that has a lot of them worried. Theater owners are very much against this as well, for the same reasons. They're worried about the theatrical releases here, and in an environment where they already are having, harder time making money due to not only the lack of good movies coming out, but the streaming industry has obviously encroached on movie theater ticket sales. And of course, you talk about the theme parks, which we talk about a lot on here, with Comcast wanting to be involved in this. Where do the theme park rights lie in all of this? Does this change anything with, say, Harry Potter and the things that Universal has in their theme parks? Obviously, we don't have those details yet. I'm going to do another video about, there was an article from Bloomberg that was pointing to the fact that before this deal was announced with Netflix and Warner Brothers, that actually Warner Brothers was looking at a separate deal involving theme park rights, and that Universal was involved in that, and that included DC. So if this ends up going the way where Netflix ends up with all this stuff here, but Comcast Universal ends up with a lot of the theme park rights, Comcast could come away with what they probably really wanted out of this, which is a securing of their theme park stuff that they have, and future ones potentially, and then Netflix getting the Warner Brothers things here. But I do know if this falls through, Netflix feels confident enough that they put up a $5 billion fee. If this falls through or Netflix decides to pull out of this, they do have to pay Warner Brothers $5 billion, which, hey, yeah, that's a lot of money, but to Netflix, that's really not that big of a deal. But that does speak to how confident they must feel in doing this, that they'd be willing to put up $5 billion on the line to be able to try and acquire Warner Brothers. Personally speaking, if Warner Brothers is in a position where they can't make it on their own, and you're talking about antitrust issues, which I would say any of these other studios buying Warner Brothers, you could make an antitrust case with this, considering it's even less competition when it comes to the entertainment side of things. I think it'd make a lot more sense that if Warner Brothers was forced to auction off these IPs and assets and allow other, these studios and maybe even independent type of studios to make bids for various IPs. Maybe some studio makes a bid for Batman, maybe one or all of DC, whatever it is. I think that would be a much more fair thing to do, where maybe Netflix does make a bid for some IP that Warner Brothers has, or somebody can end up with DC, and that would actually, make it more competitive of the assets that Warner Brothers has. And you could also make the argument that there's a lot of companies that are too big as it is right now, that antitrust laws have not been enforced. And if this one is not enforced, I have a hard time believing that there's really going to be much pushback or really regulation issues with a lot of other mergers that will probably take place into the future, because this will not be the last one, especially when you're talking about entertainment. You're probably going to see more of these because Hollywood is just shrinking. And the fact that Netflix is in a position to buy Warner Brothers, considering they are one of the ones that have been leading, Hollywood into the situation that they're in, are going to be the ones that potentially end up with a major historic studio, is kind of ironic in many ways. But we'll see how this plays out and what news comes out about if there's any word from the government about any indication they may say about this. But this would be months and months down the line before this would ever actually be officially approved at this point. So there's going to be some, bumps in the road. There's going to be some turns. There's going to be some twists on this. There's going to be a lot of politicians talking about this. So this is not going to go away. And this is very likely going to be something in the news for a while now. But as of now, Netflix is going to buy Warner Brothers for $82.7 billion. And we'll see what happens with this. It's very interesting nonetheless. And out of all the ones that were in the running for this, I actually thought Netflix was the least likely one to get this. I actually thought Paramount probably had a better shot at this, with the outside shot that maybe Comcast could make some sort of move for this. But it seems that Netflix did end up coming away with this at this point. So we'll see how this plays out into the future. But either way, that is going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of theme parks, entertainment, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about Netflix buying Warner Brothers? And do you think this ends up getting approved from regulators? And until next time, we will see you later.